is the best receiver in this draft, and I don't think it's close.
Well, I don't think anybody does what he does. He's that type of freak. I think he's phenomenal.
The Carolina Panthers drafting Tetairoa McMillan. There is projected to be a new #1 wide receiver here in Carolina, and today we are here to break down a stat line projection for what his performance could look like in 2025.
Brace yourself for the ultimate Carolina Panthers experience. Welcome to Two Growls, One Roar, the podcast that hits harder than a Luke Kuechly tackle. We're diving deep into the heart of Panther Nation, bringing you unrivaled passion, insider takes, and pure gridiron fire. From Wilmington to the cosmos, this is your home for the fiercest football talk east or west of Charlotte.
Welcome in, folks, to another edition of the Two Growls, One Roar podcast. Folks, I hope you guys are doing well today. We're here to talk about a fun topic. It's a topic that everyone in the Panthers fan base has been talking about since Tetairoa McMillan has been drafted, and that is, what is his stat line going to look like this year? So the Carolina Panthers invested heavily in their offense by selecting University of Arizona wide receiver Tetairoa McMillan with the 8th overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft. So McMillan enters into the league as a highly touted prospect, even though there are some that maybe didn't see it that way. But I think his size, ball skills, the ability to go up and get the ball are some of the bright spots, especially where he could be utilized in the red zone. His immediate success and long-term trajectory in Carolina appeared to be linked to, of course, quarterback Bryce Young. I was just listening to WFNZ. Jake Delhomme was on there on the Kyle Bailey show talking through about this investment with Bryce Young and giving him an additional weapon. And a lot of that has to do with the performance that we saw this past season. And so now you're giving Bryce Young a chance to succeed. Well, folks, without further ado, we are here to break it down. But you guys know we're not just going to throw out a random stat line projection. We're going to walk you through his profile, how he's going to fit into the scheme, what that could look like. And then, of course, towards the end, look at his projections and talk about how his performance is going to depend primarily on the offense, Dave Canales and the play calling, as well as the performance of Bryce Young. And how much are we really passing the football? So without further ado, let's jump right in, folks. I appreciate everyone that has subscribed over the last week or two. Numbers steadily increasing. So if you guys are here, please hit the subscribe button and leave a comment, like, all that good stuff. I am trying to stay on top of all those things, even though it doesn't look like. But we are here to predict Tetairoa McMillan's stat line. And it's hard to do just jumping right into it. Like, we could throw out a random numbers. We can look at the sports books, which teeter around over under of 800 yards, not really projecting into receptions or touchdowns, at least not right now. But let's get to know Tetairoa McMillan a little bit more. Folks, we know he was selected 8th overall by the Carolina Panthers. Some folks thought the Panthers were going to go with defense, but they decided to give Bryce Young and honestly Dave Canales another weapon here. And this is a big-time weapon and one that can grow alongside Bryce Young. And you pair him along with Xavier Legette and Adam Thielen and Hunter Renfrow, potentially, Jalen Coker. You're talking about a whole new revamped offense heading into this season. He's big, 6'4", 219 pounds, really good with contested catches. Like, that is primarily where he thrived. I know there's tape circulating right now of him against Travis Hunter in the game that they had. Travis Hunter did a lot of holding. Folks, before we really get into this, and I think we're going to get into it on the next slide, so I may pause. When we get into his stat line for what he did in college, there's something that I learned today as I was looking at it that stood out that we're going to dive into. So projecting his role, we think he's an X receiver. We don't think we know, which means he's going to be the primary target. It's just going to depend how many targets are we going to get. Are we going to force him the ball? You'd guesstimate right now 17, 18, maybe even 20% of the targets are going to, feature him and his skill set. When we talk about dependencies of his success, as I mentioned, it's going to be heavily reliant on Bryce Young sustaining the late season success that he had last year. Really good handling pressure, really good with deep passes and all-out blitzes. Folks, adding in a Tetairoa McMillan should eliminate some of those zero blitz pressures that we have seen them throw. And honestly, Bryce Young was handling it as is, but just having someone that can go up and get the ball. Potential for significant rookie impact, of course, contingent on quite a few things. I think, like, Panthers fans should be excited. And I know I keep saying that, but you really should be in the fact that the Panthers are going all out, giving ourselves a chance, giving Bryce Young a chance, giving this offense a chance. You think about his ability to adjust to the ball mid-flight, showing great body control. It's something that's being talked about, even though he has the size, his concentration to haul in the pass. It's one of the most impressive traits about him. Strong hands. We're going to talk about his size a little bit more in here in a second. Ability to reliably secure the football. And he had a low drop rate of less than 4%. We need a guy that can catch the ball, that can go up and get it. And proficient in contested catches with a reported 50 to 60% success in college, leading all college receivers in contested catches in 2023. Of course, 2 years ago with 35 of those. Of course, he's not defined purely by contested catch ability. He excels at making, and we're going to get into some of the weaknesses, but overall, winning against leverage a little bit. I know there's concerns about separation, press coverage, but this is a difference maker, and I think he's an unlocker of what this offense can be here in Carolina. So his college production, physical attributes, if you care about that, he has the prototypical frame, 6'4", actually a little bit larger, around 219 pounds, 10-inch hands, 31.5-inch arms. Speed, it's not elite speed, so he's not taking the top off of every defense. He's not going to beat you and blow by you per se, but that's okay. You can be really good with game speed. That's something we've seen with Mike Evans, a guy that just gets open and figures out how to get open. Now, this is one of the things that I really wanted to spend a little bit of time on, and it has to do with his college production. So over his 3 seasons at Arizona, 213 receptions, 3,423 yards, and 26 touchdowns. The receiving yards, it's a program record, so the most receiving yards in Arizona football history. Not to mention this guy didn't transfer. He didn't hit the portal, I'm sure, maybe along the way, because we saw him decked out that he got paid with this whole state of NIL, but that still means a lot, I think. Led FBS freshman in 2022 with 702 yards, 8 touchdowns. The big sophomore season with 90 receptions, 1,402 yards, which was 5th nationally, in 10 touchdowns, and junior production of 843 yards, a little over 84 receptions, a little over 1,300 receiving yards, which is 3rd nationally, and 8 touchdowns. He was a consensus All-American, Polynesian Player of the Year, and a Blinknuff finalist, if I say that right, for wide receiver. I know I said that wrong. Now, this is the part that I wanted to get into as we talk about this. So I was going back, and I think a lot of people think about Ashton Jeanty, and they think about Boise State, and I'm going somewhere with this. The Boise State offense heavily featured Ashton Jeanty. Everyone knew that he was getting the ball, but he was still productive, and he still produced, and that's part of the reason I think he's going to be very successful for the Las Vegas Raiders and in the NFL. Like, there's no doubt this guy's going to be successful. He also did it against Power 5 conference opponents, Power 4, whatever, all the same. I want you to think about something here with Arizona. So Tetairoa McMillan, I went back and I posted a short form video for you guys today. I was looking at his college production from this past season, which we know, 1,300 yards. Folks, I want you to go back and look at the production of the next closest wide receiver on the team. 300 yards. Folks, there is a 1,000-yard difference in the production of Tetairoa McMillan compared to his other teammates. That is how good he is. And then you add up, there's 6 other wide receivers that had a catch or yardage this year on the Arizona Wildcats. He, with his numbers alone, you add up all their receiving yards, had more receiving yards than them. That is how good this guy is. You talk about quarterback play that was so-so. Arizona originally had some expectations to win some football games this year. We know they fell apart. The team itself wasn't great. But thinking about how he was able to produce as much as he was, being the focal point should make fans here feel like, okay, maybe the Carolina Panthers did something right. That stat to me is mind-blowing. Now, his play style and strength that we've talked a little bit about, he's a classic X receiver. His size, his catch radius, body control, we know that. Like those attributes are what's going to make him special. His elite contested catches, like we said back in the 23 to 24, led the FBS. Reliable hands. He has a low drop rate. Really good at making difficult catches and high football IQ. Adjust on his routes. He's a quarterback-friendly receiver with improved yak ability, man. We need players that can catch the ball, that can run, that can score, that can get open. And I know he's got some work to do with his route running, but overall, he pretty much can run about every route that's on the tree. Some of his weaknesses, because we don't want to be all happy-go-lucky here, separation. So not necessarily adequate speed. He may not consistently separate from NFL cornerbacks. His press coverage needs release package development. I think these are all things to work with. Guess what? When you have Dave Canales as your head coach, who spent 10 years coaching wide receivers in the NFL, couldn't have landed in a better spot. Maybe there is, I don't know. But personally, I don't think you could have landed in a better spot to help you with your development. Running routes, he occasionally rounds off his routes. I know there was conversations about him taking plays off, things like that. But in general, I think those are all things that we can work through. In blocking, he does need some improvement. But when you're the X receiver out wide, maybe pretty limited as far as what you're actually going to have to do. He's already addressed the concerns that folks have talked about it with the film and him being a freshman and just young, dumb, and stupid like all of us. So don't worry. Like, I'm not throwing a weakness on here that he doesn't want to get into the film room, because he's already talked about it. He already has. So fitting in to the Dave Canales scheme, starting X receiver, yes, I think that's what we're going to see. Leveraging his size on the boundary. There is potential for a few slot snaps due to the versatility that you can have within the Canales scheme. We know that Canales likes to try to remain balanced, although he did have a pretty unbalanced play call last year, like leaning more heavily towards the pass compared to the run. We know we eventually want to get back to running the ball. At least I think we do. You bring in Dowdle, you draft ETN, and you have Chuba Hubbard. I expect for them to run the ball a little bit more this season, but you can move him around. But again, he'll primarily play on the outside. His versatility teaches, he's got speaking of Canales himself, being able to go through the full route tree. He loves to use, speaking of Dave Canales, 11 personnel, which incorporates 3 wide receivers into the equation. So all good there. He does love to scheme receivers open, taking some deep shots, some RPOs, some screens, some things that we saw towards the end of last year, the success of Bryce Young. He had more confidence in Bryce Young. He opened up the playbook a little more, and he gave Bryce Young a chance to make some plays. When the pressure was on, they're bringing an all-out blitz. He feels confident enough in Bryce Young. And that was a complete 180 from where we were, when it felt like, and even under the Frank Wright days, they just didn't trust Bryce Young to be able to make a play. Bryce Young is smart. He's really good. He's athletic. It's for Panthers fans, we know Bryce Young's athletic. He can move around. That's where he's the best. You talk about scramble drills, being able to move, having a big target like Tetairoa McMillan down there. Love it. Analytics driven as far as Dave Canales. And I mean, I don't know that necessarily fits into how we expect things to pan out for Tetairoa McMillan. But anyways, 2024 target distribution. So about 66% of the 514 pass attempts between Andy Dalton and Bryce Young went to a wide receiver. So we expect the wide receivers. And folks, we got a jam-packed wide receiver room. If you have not seen my video, we have another video breaking down the entire group of wide receivers, where they sit now, the depth chart, where things could play out. We know it's a fluid process, but I mentioned a lot of names: the Cokers, the Thielens, the Legettes. I'm calling these guys multiples, But those guys, we haven't even talked about Renfro. We haven't really talked about Horn Jr., David Moore. Like, this is a very crowded room and a lot of competition. And, like, hey, I can't wait to see what these guys do. Ample volume for McMillan to earn significant share. Yeah, I think we're going to see a pretty significant chunk of play design. I don't think it's going to be forced. I think Bryce Young is still going to trust his old buddy pal Adam Thielen quite a bit. And, of course, Jalen Coker. They really get, like, what are we going to be able to do for those 4 wide receiver packages or putting Xavier Leggett in the backfield? And, again, I like to shy away from talking about Deebo Samuel and, like, it's just different play type, but I'm excited to see what they can do with that. All right, folks, we cannot talk about the success of Tetairoa McMillan. And, folks, we are going to get into my projections on Tetairoa McMillan right here after this. So stay tuned. Not too much longer, but we can't really talk about it until we address the person that's throwing him the football, because that's important. Bryce Young, his development, what we saw. So it was a tale of two halves. Panthers fans know this. Bryce Young benched early, returned week 8, made significant improvements. And, man, I don't think I could have scripted this better. I don't think he could have scripted this better. I don't think anyone could, to see his rebound and performance in the way that he did. But that 8-game stretch, well, I guess since week 8, with 10 games, 61.8% completion percentage was an improvement. Over 2,000 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. It does not include the rushing touchdowns, and almost a 89 passer rating, 88.9. He showcased his poise, his command, his creation within the offense, and just being able to make plays with his feet when needed, scrambling, getting out, and having the confidence to deliver. That late season surge over the final 10 weeks, he was first in big-time throws. We looked at the next-gen stats last year as the season was closing, and he was making more contested throws than anyone into tight windows in the NFL with low interception numbers. Dude, he came alive. 4th in deep passing grade, 5th in overall passing grade, and 5th in passing grade under pressure. That was over the final 10 games for Bryce Young. You talk about pairing these two guys together. We know that they've spent at least one day throwing way back when. That's why Bryce Young was such a big fan of getting Tetairoa McMillan here, pounded the table, all those things. He gets his guy, and now we get to see this thing in motion. You should see improved deep ball accuracy. Again, he's not going to take the top off, but having that size and height advantage, I think that will complement their game. His ability to make contested catches, willingness to throw into tight windows for Bryce Young matches the strength of what Tetairoa McMillan can do, because he can win those contested balls. And then the poise under pressure, giving him time to allow those routes to develop downfield, being able to make a throw. So this synergy we talked about, it's going to provide a little margin for error for McMillan to kind of come into his own. We're going to talk about the historical context of who it is. You're wondering, why is Drake London on here? He turns accurate deep shots into completions, intermediate reliability. His route IQ offers is a safety valve, being able to sustain drives and open up opportunities for other receivers on the team. Leggett, Thielen, Coker, we talked about that. Historical context. So first-round rookie wide receivers, you're usually looking at higher production out of these guys, especially guys selected in the top 10. Someone I was following pulled the numbers for guys drafted in the first round, wide receivers drafted within the top 10 over the last 5 or 6 years. You average about 1,000 yards. That's the whole point of this video, is we're going to get into what we think Tetairoa McMillan can look like. But there is some variance. But in general, you're getting top-end talent. So you should see production out of them. More immediate impact with guys like Jefferson, Chase. And if you want to, comp, I know a lot of people talking like Evans, Drake London, who was the 8th pick in 2022 in his rookie campaign, 72 receptions, 866 yards, and 4 touchdowns in a low-volume offense. So I think that's someone, and there's quite a few other guys that we could probably talk to that maybe he fits into. Let's see if I have my notes, because I did have a few other guys on here. But anyways, finally, We'll skip over that. We'll get into the final projections because that's what we're here. 2025 stat projections. Projected target share 18 to 22%. Projected targets around 100 to 132. Receptions 60 to 83. I have receiving yards at 780 to 1,162, topping it out in 5 to 7 touchdowns, maybe closer to 8. That is my projection for Tetairoa McMillan this year. So 18 to 20% of the targets, 60 to 83 receptions. Maybe it's closer to 50. And I would say maybe 780, topping out close to 1,200 yards. If anything over 800 is, honestly, 750 is good, in my opinion, just knowing how this offense has been and that 5 to 7 touchdown range. So for this to happen, of course, I think we analyze like Bryce Young's performance. Bryce Young would likely throw around 3,800 to 4,200 yards with close to 600 pass attempts and continuing to go forward with the efficiencies that we saw last year. Well, folks, that is going to do it. I would love to know what you guys think. How do you predict this thing playing out? As always, this is Carolina Dad. Y'all have a good one.